All right.
Hi, everybody. This is Joanne Eisen with another show for Reach the Unlimited. And I have the beautiful and wonderful Amanda Rigger-Green, who is going to be sharing with us her wisdom of astrology and numerology and her intuition as well, because she's gifted at all these things. And I love having you on the show. Thank you for being with me again today. Do you want to tell people that may not know who you are a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Joanne, thanks for having me. My name is Amanda Rigger-Green, and I live in Belize. I relocated from Austin, Texas to Belize about a year ago, and so it has been a wild adventure of simplifying, and I was joking with Joanne that we have been social distancing before social distancing was a thing, so it's really the name of the game. But I am a numerologist. I'm a claircognizant and precognitive, a psychic medium. I'm in astrology. I know astrology. I've never studied it formally. It just downloaded, and so I understand those rhythms. And I have a business called Soul Pathology, where I work remotely with clients and have for the past handful of years all over the world, and mostly connecting people with their higher self and their highest potential with intuitive and practical tools to help set that in motion in order to run towards your destiny rather than being distracted by all the limiting conditions, beliefs, and behaviors. So.
Boy, is that important right now, all the distractions. We were just chatting about all the distractions. There's so many of them. Hi, you guys, everybody. Denise, Marianne, Marilyn, Marcia. Thank you guys all for being here. And if you have questions, please put them in the comment box. I'm seeing them, so we'll be able to catch them as well. So we're going to just get right into this, because exactly what you said is what we're all feeling, is all the stress and the distractions and the pressure of what's happening in our world. And what I wanted to start with right now, because it's so in our face, is we have the COVID-19, we have the protesting that's going on, we have the changes that need to be made in our world when it comes to the way that we all live together in unity and in oneness. And we were talking about this being two things, the 4 and the 22 in our year. And can you talk a little bit about that? Let's go.
And what I was also thinking about that we didn't even discuss is the number 19, COVID-19. Yeah. 19 is a karmic number. In numerology, when you talk about the building blocks, the ABCs of numerology, it's the numbers 1 through 9. 1 being the beginning, 9 being the bookend, the completion. Mm-hmm. So 19 is a karmic number, and it's like eclipse energy. So if we want to bring it back to the astrology, it's beginnings and endings, death and rebirth, transformation, but it's also alchemy. Mm-hmm. Taking something of a lower vibration and turning it, a base metal, and turning it into gold. So in that karmic energy, there's opportunity to shift up, to shift consciousness, to move from ego to oneness. And that's really the beautiful lesson of the 19, but usually the journey there is painful. So just to start out with talking about COVID-19 and what that code represents. But yeah, we're in a 4-year in numerology, and on top of that, it's 2020, and 22 is a master number, and master numbers are the numbers 11, 22, and 33, and they have karmic lessons and heavy energy attached to them. So if you resist the lesson, the universe is going to push you to show up, and it can happen through catastrophe, disease, disaster. You look at what's going on in the stage, and 22 is saying, hey, we're not going to play that way anymore, because 22 is 4, and the number 4 is a number of building solid foundations. So if you draw a 4 on your piece of paper, it looks like a grid. It's masculine, it's angular, it looks like 4 quadrants. Think about north, south, east, west, 4 corners in a room typically. Yeah. It's really about building a solid foundation with a structure, with an infrastructure. It's analytical, pragmatic, practical. It likes order and efficiency. I mean, you can hear my language is very masculine. It's very yang. Yes. Direct. And then when you have the 22, which is the higher vibration, the alchemized energy, the 22 consist of the number 2.
Mm-hmm.
2 is a very feminine number. It's an intuitive number. It's the Libra of the numbers: balance, harmony, partnership. It's the intuitive. So when you have a double 22, it is really about bringing dreams into reality, and anything that is of a lower vibration or is outdated or is holding us back from moving into a higher vibrational frequency or reality, or bringing those dreams to reality, will no longer exist, or will be destroyed in order to be rebuilt.
So the question that I have as I'm listening to you talk is that we have two things going on here, right? We have the collective, which is feeling all of this stress and this change and this dynamic that we're needing to deal with. And then we have our personal lives too, that are doing it at the same time. How do we merge them? How do we work together and not going crazy when it comes to worrying? Because a lot of us are empaths, so we're feeling the collective. And we're also going, like we were talking about, being more introspect, going inward and doing more of our inner work. At least I know you said you have, and I have been doing that over the last couple months. How do we bring balance to that in our life?
So you just stated it beautifully, because that's the energy of the double 2. You know, it is the personal, or the local and the global. It is, the self and the self with a capital S. So there's all these dichotomies, and it's bridging the two. But for me, and for so much of my personal practice, it's really been about focusing on self-care in very grounded, practical, routine ways. And that's the energy of the 4. So if you bring it back home, the 4 is the year of cleaning house. So whether it's old mindsets and patterns of thinking, or it's old emotions that you've been storing in your body, because that's really being triggered psychically and energetically. If it's moving to a higher spiritual plane, if it's your physical body and your physical health, it's cleaning house in all of those respects. So creating routines and discipline. The 4 loves discipline. It loves figuring out an action plan and sticking to the plan and making adjustments, obviously, along the way, but sticking to a plan or a routine. So for me, it's really been creating a morning and evening routine, and, getting up in the morning, having my quiet time, my coffee. And we live here in Belize, and, the mornings and the evenings we cherish. We cherish getting quiet and outside with nature, away from screen time, because all of us have had not just we've been bombarded by electronics.
Yes.
That is, we've been forced to, in order to connect. And it's been beautiful, by the way, to be able to connect with people that I don't get to see, especially living, remotely now and not being physically connected. But at the same time, it's almost doubly draining. I don't know if you've experienced that, but it really drains me.
I knew this would all go naturally. We're not the only one. We've all been experiencing that, because like we were talking about when we first started the pandemic, it was like, oh, we all have to be there for each other. We all have to, support and help each other and listen to each other. We were like, it was all this like energy of caring and support, right? And then at some point, and I know Marilyn and a couple of the people that I know that are watching this had that same feeling of just being overloaded by so much information that we were being totally bombarded with. And like we were talking, a lot of it was about how am I going to be able to make money out of this? How am I going to be able to, it wasn't really for the support. There was that, I would say probably about 2 weeks in, you felt this shift, and it was like, I also took a break. It was like, I'm walking away. This is way too much.
I had multiple opportunities come my way in the very beginning of the pandemic. Do you want to partner and do this or this workshop or this retreat? And I, was able to step back and say, thank you for asking, but it feels like too much to me. And if I show up and do that, I'm going to walk away depleted and even maybe resentful, and And so one of the biggest things in this pandemic for me, a reminder is know thyself. Know thyself. What feels right to me? Because this masculine energy of the 4, it loves operating in restriction.
Mm-hmm.
When you feel restricted, we want to bust out and we want to get things done and we want to get them done efficiently and perfect the first time. So there's that extroversion and that push that more is more. And that's how the beginning of the pandemic felt. And it felt like this bombardment. And then I know that I judge my insides on somebody else's outside. So if I see you on Instagram and you're posting all this wise information left and right, all of a sudden I'm not enough. There's old stuff for me that I don't feel like I'm doing enough. I'm not out there. I'm going to let people down, and then it's all this terrible negative self-talk that gets triggered.
Right. I hear you on that. I mean, even if we're doing all that we can do, because we're allowing ourselves to judge ourselves or evaluate ourselves compared to somebody else that we know nothing about. We don't even know what their life is like.
No, we don't even know if it's true. But in our minds, our magic magnifying minds, we create these storylines and we run with them. And I believe them. I know how to believe them and go down that rabbit hole. And I kind of learned now, when I touch the stove and it's on, it's hot.
Yeah.
But I forget that really easily. So creating discipline for me around screen time and social media, and also even all the loving, supportive online groups that I've been able to participate in, even being able to say no to some of those, which are even healthy groups that are uplifting and solution oriented, and whether they're spiritual practice based or women based, being able to say no, because I'm a people pleaser. I don't want to let you down. I mean, and so I feel like all of my challenges and struggles have come back up to the surface, but I've really been able to create some discipline around healthy behaviors. And the biggest thing that I did in the beginning of the pandemic was my husband and I, and he's a good influence in this sense because he's physically fit and he eats well. And so we prioritize that in our household, but our gym closed. And it's a simple thing, but here in Belize, we had a really strict quarantine and the gym closed. And that was my little outlet. That they had air conditioning at the gym. They had Wi-Fi and also a really great little coffee shop, which was my treat, and then the gym. And so it was my little oasis. It happens to be called the Oasis, but my oasis in the day. And when that shut down, it was like, oh gosh, if I don't create some sort of healthy exercise routine at home for my mind, for my body to sweat out all this stuff that's coming up, I'm going to go into a downward spiral. And then I'm an emotional eater. So when I'm distracted or I don't want to feel, I go to the refrigerator. And I know these things about me. So I really set the stage in the beginning to create healthy exercise routines and doing something every day. And we weren't able to walk outside of our house with our dogs. So I had to do online stuff, which there's all these amazing offerings. I've gotten to do yoga. My sister's an amazing yoga instructor, and I've gotten to take her classes, which has been a joy. But creating discipline around my physical fitness and the food I was putting in my body, that's where I started during the pandemic, at the beginning.
Well, the one thing that I love about what you're saying about all aspects of what we're talking about is that self-love bit, meaning wherever you're at and however you're dealing with it, you have to be compassionate with yourself, because this is new territory for all of us. We have never in our history experienced what is going on in the world right now. And so a big part of it is we're all going to deal with it in a different way. I would imagine, depending on our astrology, our birth, our, where we're born, all those other things, and the numerology as well, to what our life lesson is here to learn. So self-love, I think, is really imperative.
Yeah. And it's been tough because what we're seeing out there in the media is this active, action-oriented culture, which we're conditioned in that sense. And so if we don't find ourselves taking action. I know for me, sometimes it triggers this, I'm not doing enough. So really getting clear on reality and what is true for me, you know, and it comes down to getting quiet, to meditating, to spending time in nature, but really creating discipline around self-care, whatever that looks like for you. And I always tell people, you know, that are freak out about meditating. I talked to somebody the other day and she was total Aries, you know, like, and had like Aries and then a Gemini, a Mercury and Gemini or something. And that may not even make sense. I can't remember, but a lot of air and a lot of fire. And it was all over the place. And she said, I mean, 2 minutes of meditating just sounds overwhelming. And I said, you know what? Do you like the outdoors? Do you like nature? Yes. I said, can you go outside for 5 minutes without your phone, with your eyes open and just look outside at what's around you, listen to the sounds? That's meditation.
Yeah.
You know, finding something that works for you that doesn't feel like another box on your to-do list that if you don't check it today, you're going to fuss at yourself.
And I love that. That's important. It's what you said earlier too. It's about saying no, even if it's a good group, even if it's worthwhile, even if it's something that's really important to you, being able to say no because you need that time for yourself, whether it be to go walk in nature or to just sit and breathe for a few minutes. Because, you know, people think meditation, oh, I have to do it in a certain way. Or I have to do it for an hour, or I have to do, you know, we put on these, again, it's comparing ourselves, right, to other people and what, I don't know, what people have categorized as being the right way to meditate.
Yeah.
It really is just connecting back into your heart space. It's connecting back to your soul.
Yeah. Taking a bath, you know, taking a shower, you know, just reading a magazine, you know, whatever is just a little bit of quiet time without distraction to be able to get still, however that works for you. And it really is about just creating that time and meeting yourself wherever you are.
And I do think it's going again back to the numerology where it's about revisiting and not taking on our old ways of thinking. It's about creating a newness and going forward. So like you said about, you know, I know that if I touch a stove, it's going to be hot. If I just had it on, it's like, I know that. So for me too, like if I'm watching all these people posting and doing all this stuff and I'm thinking, I'm not doing enough, I need to do more. It's about, you know, being able to back away and change those old ways of thinking. That's something we have to remember.
And, you know, what also I think people forget because we're so logical and practical and externally oriented. And this is really forcing us to confront the internal. And everybody knows that by now. Everybody has had all sorts of, you know what, come up in different ways and different shapes. And it's probably come out sideways, you know, on the people you love. That's where we spew it out. At least that's where I spew it, you know, on the people I love the most. You know, my mom and my husband, they get the biggest chunk of that. So I make amends often. And at least today I get to make amends, you know, I'm aware enough.
Yeah.
What's also happening that I think is so important to remember is that oftentimes we are opened up psychically through trauma. Psychic abilities don't always just appear and materialize. Of course, if you practice them and tapping into your intuition, as you know, but a lot of times people's psychic abilities are triggered through some sort of traumatic event or trauma. And we are going through layers of trauma on the collective and personal. People have financial trauma right now, obviously the disease and physical trauma, all of the race dialogue is triggering stuff in the cells, in the DNA, in bloodlines. And so we are being ripped open from a psychic perspective, and it's being triggered in our DNA. And I believe that we signed up for this. We signed up to be able to shine light and love and compassion and heal. And it feels that way. For as immense and intense and heartbreaking and disparaging as what's going on in our world is, there is this sense that something is different, something is changing, you know, for the better.
Do you think that, let's take the collective first. Do you think
Yeah.
that what is happening now is really going to, as we go into 2021, are we going to start coming out of this type of stress or this type of pressure that we're feeling right now into something a little better? And will we be able to make the change that needs to be made?
So I feel that we are just on the brink. I feel like there are more events that are coming down the pipelines. And if you look at the numerology, if we get really simple, the numbers happen sequentially. So, and you and I talked about this earlier in the year. Last year, 2019 was a 3-year. The 3 is about creativity. It's about communication. It's very extroverted. It's the actor on the stage. There's a lot going on and a lot happening with the 3. When we get to the 4, we ground it in. We get practical. Anything frivolous that was clouding our judgment and our time and our mind and our heart, we got to get rid of that, because we got to ground it in and get down to business and build something to last. So next year is a 5-year. The 5 is the most unstable energy there is. So I hate to be the bearer of more news. Let's just call it that, more news. The 4 is so not the 5. And I say that all the time, but if you draw a 5 on your piece of paper, it's top heavy. The top is masculine and the bottom is a teeter-totter. It's the round base. And so it tilts back and forth. But what is beautiful about the 5 is if you get the lessons that the 4 has to offer, if you do the work, if you simplify, create discipline and routines, trust the process, all the things that we talk about, and clear any clutter that is limiting you or from your light, and shining your light and feeling healthy and fulfilled and knowing that you have a connection to something greater, then you can move into the 5 energy and experience luck, freedom. The 5 is all about freedom and opportunity. And so we are undergoing this new sense of freedom. In our country, the cornerstone was built on freedom, and look where the revolution is happening with what's going on right now.
Right.
So it's not going to be this moving into a new year that it's all going to ground in and everything's going to culminate and come together beautifully. It's going to come together, I don't want to say haphazardly, but in moments, in aha moments. And if you can create tools this year that create discipline and simplicity, getting down to basics, then you will soar next year when everything feels a little bit even more chaotic than it is now.
Talk a little bit more about what you're really meaning when you're talking about the tools and the discipline and the really simplifying your life. What does that really mean?
So I love, so Danielle Laporte, do you know who Danielle Laporte is? So, she's so brilliant, Canadian. She is brilliant. And, she's such an incredible thinker, but she's so spiritual. And her podcast that she's been doing during the pandemic is called Grace for Impact. And it blows me away, because that sums it up to me. And it's about practicing a greater sense of grace and peace, simplicity and serenity through the things that matter.
Yes.
Now, anything that is weighing you down, stressing you out, keeping you disconnected, whether it's from yourself, the people that you love, your God, your higher power, anything that is disconnecting you from experiencing this ridiculously beautiful inner divinity that we all have, it's clear that out. Feel yourself. When I say that, feel and experience who you are through the people that matter, connecting with nature, your body, eating well, just simplifying your routines and creating practices that are personal and realistic, but that help you feel grounded and focused and clear versus scattered and all over the place. Racing for impact is, and I'm snagging her wording, but I love the way that she said that. She says that because it feels like the people who I have connected with during this time who are really retreating and going within and asking themselves what matters, who matters, why it matters, what is outdated, where they can listen, where they can connect, what matters, what's of integrity. Those are the people that are really transforming and creating this sense of peace and grace like I've never seen before. You know?
Well, that's the one thing through my working through my intuition, my psychic development, my mediumship development. The one thing that has struck me the most is that getting to know your inner you, because that's what's going to help you to see what the frills and all the frivolous things around you are, because you are starting to be able to see it more clearly. So I totally agree with that. In fact, I was just talking to somebody, hi Sharon, earlier today about that same thing, about if you don't really know who you are, that inner true you, not that person that's here, but that soul being that's here to have that experience, and you don't really know what's important to you and what you need to get rid of and don't.
Know thyself. And that has been my motto throughout this pandemic. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I have done during the pandemic and that has been wonderful, I have read a couple of fiction books, and I am an avid reader and learner, and I'm always soaking up new knowledge and information. But I hadn't read a fiction book in a while. And because we're here in Belize and I can't get physical books as readily, which I miss, I love holding a book.
Right.
So I'm doing, a lot of Kindle. I actually got Audible and listened to a couple of books. And I was just in a whole fantasy world and totally into the books and mesmerized and looking forward to my time to listen to the book.
Yeah.
And that to me, it gave me this, it was just my time and my energy. And I was looking forward to it like a kid. It was a childlike sense of fantasy and wonder. And there's so much pressure externally that it's really important to reconnect to the child and the fantasy, because that's what's empowering.
I love that you said that, because I'm the same way. I'm more of a learner, right? Whatever I try. I even had the hit a couple months ago. Get a fantasy book. Don't get another learning book. And what did I do? I got another learning book, and I loved it. I love this author. I love the book that I'm going through. But that's important to listen. One, I didn't listen to my intuition, because we need that time, because that develops your creativity.
Yes.
That develops that inner part of you that's going to spark something that you can tap into and create newness from. So we need to have the balance in both worlds. We definitely do.
And that's all of that creativity and going within and utilizing the ability to daydream and envision, that is a tool, because it's also what's happening in this energy. And the 22 evokes this, and the 4 does as well, is we are rewiring our brains and our hearts. So it's this opportunity to move with discernment, the interconnection of the head and the heart, but also creating new neural patterning and neural networks, and interconnecting the right and the left hemispheres of the brain. Almost everyone I talk to, I say, okay, start brushing your teeth with the other hand.
Exactly.
I'm like, I know this sounds silly. And I said, okay, and say these intentions. And I said, look, you're brushing your teeth for 2 or 3 minutes. With the opposite hand, feel awkward, and say, I am creating new neural networks in my brain. The right and the left hemispheres are communicating. New ways of thinking are coming to me innately. New doors are opening. I just give them stuff to say, and they laugh. And then, 3 weeks later, they're like, you're not going to believe this. It was so easy to brush my teeth today with the other hand.
That is very true. I started doing that a while ago, and it really does make a difference when you brush your teeth with your opposite hand, dominant hand. It frees you. It frees your mind. And that's what we really need to be doing. I know whenever you're cleaning out or doing whatever, which we should be doing in, all aspects, whether it be our mind, our body, our home, is if you don't absolutely love it, let it go. And that is also the choices that we make in our life. If you're not really in love with what you're doing, you need to let this stuff go, because you're doing it out of obligation, or to make somebody else happy, or because you're guilty. It's always coming from that negative.
And it's so hard. What you said is so simple.
Yeah.
For me, I'm a slow learner sometimes. It takes me a long time to realize, ooh, I outgrew that, or I don't love that anymore. I don't even think I like it either. I talked to somebody recently, and this is the coolest example because it was mind-blowing but simple. This woman is an Ironman. She competes in Ironman. She's done multiple Ironmans. And because of COVID, she hasn't been able to do the group exercises and conditioning that she's used to doing as far as training. And the Ironman is in September. And she said, just the other day, I had this wild realization that if I don't want to do this Ironman, I don't have to. And it was like, and this woman is brilliant. She's like a policymaker in DC, and she's like, and it was like, oh, if I don't want to do this in September and I want to just forego it and sign up for another one later, I can do that. And so sometimes the simple stuff that we think we have to do, and whether it's relationships, and because we've spent a lot of family time in this COVID, depending on where you are or, whatnot, relationships and healthy boundaries. And the 4 is all about boundaries and creating boundaries. But for me, sometimes I forget that when I set boundaries, that they're subject to change.
Yes.
They're subject to change. Yes. The 4 is, let me tell you this, with the 4, if you draw, or like I said, if you draw that 4 on your piece of paper and it, looks like a grid, most people who have a heavy 4 in their energy field, I always say they draw boundaries with Sharpies, not pencils, because they're so pragmatic and process oriented. And when they set a boundary, they stick to it. Like they're very fundamental. And so I say to them, hey, maybe start using a pencil with your boundaries, because you might want to erase it and change it in a couple of months, because you might change your mind or your heart, or something may happen. So drawing boundaries with pencils, but drawing them nonetheless, articulating them too.
That's really, 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 really important. There's not enough reallys to put on that, because as we're growing, as we're evolving, we're changing. And so our views will change, our goals will change, all of us changes. So something that we loved, and this is the year of change, right? And letting go of things that are no longer serving us. So it's being able to maybe start with the smaller things that are easy to stomach, that I'm going to, change this or take the boundary off of that. But it does teach you that even the bigger things, like if it's something you really, really loved, there's nothing wrong with the fact you don't love it anymore. There's something you replace it with something else.
And even with the dialogue and the conversations that are happening with race and all the things that we're facing, being able to listen, and that has come up a lot. And, we can go back to this. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and I am using my mouth, but I have learned to listen. And being here in Belize and simplifying and getting quiet, I feel like I've become a better listener, not only to myself, but to the people around me. And so listening to other viewpoints, which I've always been good with hearing other viewpoints and stepping back and looking at the big picture, but really taking a hard look at myself and where maybe I have these dogmatic or rigid belief systems that were grounded into me, whether they were from a young age. I grew up in Louisiana and Texas. I grew up in the South with a lot of love and a lot of, connection interracially, but there were also some unspoken truths that we didn't talk about, and it doesn't make it okay. And so being able to step back and say, ooh, that's not okay. Just because I don't say it and it's unspoken doesn't mean it's okay. So really listening to my heart and my head and being able to learn and open myself up, that's also a boundary that might have been drawn with a Sharpie that I didn't realize, because it's hardwired into my DNA, and also my conditioning, my social conditioning, my familial conditioning, and also the Deep South in Louisiana where I grew up, where there's a lot of conditioning. So,
hi, Sharon. Glad you're here with us. I think it does go back to practicing too, because even that goes into our ego, goes into our not wanting to be wrong or not wanting to look bad. And really, quite frankly, that's another part of our deconditioning we need to do is we are human and we will make mistakes, and there's nothing wrong with making a mistake. It's about how we learn through it and what we're learning through it. So when I'm with you, one of the things that I stopped doing was talking so much and doing a lot more listening. And also when somebody is talking, to listen how I'm reacting or how am I feeling about something, because then I'm learning about my prejudice or my preconditioned ideas. Excuse me. So I do think that that's a big part of it, is learning to, one, drop the ego, excuse me, and just allow yourself to pay attention to what in that part of your human nature you need to let go of.
And like we were discussing earlier about the veil being very thin and everything that's happening, it's almost like the COVID was a set up for what's going on now because of the psychic veil being thin and because of all the collective trauma just through the quarantine and the isolation and the disease itself and mass amounts of loss and change financially, personally, all of the above.
Right.
All of that happening. And then we have so much that's been triggered in our DNA and in our lineage and in our ancestry. And if you want to get down to the astrology that's been said over and over again, the United States is in its Pluto return. Pluto is coming back to the place that it was in the sky when we signed the Declaration of Independence. And Pluto is all about transformation, death, and rebirth. And in my heart, I want to believe, and I do believe, that we are alchemizing the United States. We are taking something that was well-intentioned, but not set up, and I'm not, I may not have the right words to speak on this, but I feel like we're taking something and we're birthing something new in a higher level of consciousness, which is also that interconnection of ego and spirit, ego and soul, and creating a bridge between the two. So hopefully we're bridging ourselves into a new reality. And
I really feel like that's correct, because you see, never in history, ever in history, have we seen all of everybody, all kinds of people working together for the good of this betterment of how we live our lives. We can't keep doing what we were doing. Never in history have you seen each other working together and supporting each other and coming together in this protest. Even after the riots, I've never seen in the riots that we've had here where, and I've said this last time, but where people came out of all races and helped clean up the mess, help put neighborhoods back together again, because this change has got to happen. And we don't, again, I feel like it's that unfamiliar, right? We're going into this unfamiliar territory that we don't know what it's going to look like, but we do know it's going to be better than what it was. It's probably not going to be perfect. Well, we could take probably out of there because we're still human beings, but it's going to be better than what it was.
And it's already happening. And it's like, when we have a natural disaster, when we have an earthquake or the fires, or, I've been through so many hurricanes, and you see humanity.
Right.
That's what happens. Humanity happens. In disaster, in times of tragedy and trauma. That's when humanity happens. And that is this birth of this new consciousness, where it's going to become more of the norm rather than in a traumatic event that is a fissure that cracks us open. It's about grounding that into a way of being versus just a response to some sort of catastrophic event. And that's back to the 22 and the 4. Building a solid foundation where dreams come into reality. So there's a fanciful energy about it, this higher consciousness, but it's also practical and it's real and it's built with sustainability.
Yeah.
Sustainability and also a resiliency that is not the same kind of destructive or detrimental as it has been.
Exactly. And you could feel it. You feel it in the energy. It's completely different than it's ever been before. I mean, you still have some people that are divided, but those are the ones that are not going to go along with the ship, and they're not going to keep being able to be doing what they're doing. Something is going to break. And because we all have to move forward into what is better for everybody than where we've been.
And I'm excited and hopeful.
Yeah.
And I'm also cautious too,
Yeah.
you know, and being mindful. And so for me, that caution goes back to everything that you're saying about the personal aspect of it. What can we do locally? What can we do within ourselves? And it's making sure that I get up and I say my prayers and my intentions in the morning. I start my day by, you know, asking to be a vessel of service or peace, you know, and those are practices that I created a handful of years ago, but they serve me well because I do better when I remember to ask to be shown by something greater than me. And I forget. You know, I forget 25 times in a day, you know, especially when something doesn't go my way. You know? but at the same time, I'm a work in progress, and it's not about perfection. It's just about showing up, creating a practice that is about knowing thyself and being of service and listening, those things.
And having the self-love, because you're right, we are a work in progress. We're never going to get this perfect while we're here, because that's what we're here to do, is to learn how to become perfect. So it's we're always going to have that play to be able to do that.
I shared with you, you know, before we went on live, that during this this time frame, you know, I work a lot individually with clients, and being able to show up healthy and whole for them, which has been a part of my business and practice since I started and went out on my own and did this. But really making sure that I am well rested, I'm well fed, you know, and whether that's spiritual food, soul food, or it is literally the food that I'm putting in my body, and drinking water and exercising and detoxing and being mindful. That's important to me, to have a clean vessel, to be able to show up, to be of service, to do the work that I do, because it's an honor and a privilege to do what I get to do. But I also have to practice the self-care in order to feel like I show up wholly. And that's important. So.
And I want to stress to people, because I know we're all at different levels. We're all at different stages. We are all at different places in our life. It's not something, you didn't just wake up one day and say, this is what I'm going to do. It took whatever your journey to get you where you're at. So I want people to realize that we're all at different stages in our journey. And that's what we're achieving to, though, because the more that we can be whole in ourselves, then the more that we can be able to help other people in that wholeness. That's the important thing.
And, you know, this pandemic and what is going on as far as race and the changes in our world and in our hearts and our minds and our actions, it is a traumatic event. And so much of my my gifts and my abilities and the work that I get to do, it happened through a lot of pain, a lot of trauma, and I live on borrowed time. You know, I shouldn't be here, and I'm grateful every day for the depression and the suicide attempts. I mean, the struggle was real, but I woke up one day and said, hey, I don't want to live like this anymore. And I came down to this planet for something, and it's light. But in order to shine the light, I gotta shine my light into the darkness and clear it out.
Right.
You know, and the darkness still comes, and I'm not afraid of the dark anymore. You know, I'm not afraid of it. I might behave badly sometimes, you know, and act out and throw my temper tantrums, but they're shorter lived because it doesn't feel as comfortable anymore. Used to it, that pain and that drama felt so comfortable because it was defining, but it doesn't anymore. And so when I feel it come in, I use my tools.
Right.
You know, I look at what's going on, and I also ask for guidance. Having good friends and mentors and support system to say, hey, can you tell me how I'm behaving and what I need to clean up, because I'm not feeling and seeing clearly right now.
Right.
So support has also been a huge help for me during these times, asking for guidance and making sure I'm checking myself.
Yes.
You know?
And that comes, I love how you describe that perfectly, because that's the process that we go through. We're starting in this darkness and we become more and more aware, especially as we become more and more connected to who we really are and know thyself. We're back to know thyself. When you really know thyself, you do get out of it faster, because you start feeling like, oh, wait a minute, this is that again. I'm not going to go into that. This didn't serve me. I'm going to go this way. And you're going to have sometimes where you're going to be better at it than other times, because we are human. And that's the whole point of being here, is to be human and to again go back into that self-love. And then we're still being pulled by so many different forces that still boggle my mind, because I'm not an astrologist or a numerologist, but they do play a big part of what we're feeling and how we're experiencing life.
Yeah, and simply, if you're new to numerology, and the numbers they're easy and they're simple, but they're quite profound. Every month we have a number code that happens. So we talked about 20 being a 4-year, 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 0 equals 4. Well, each month we have a universal lesson that goes on in numerology. So for June is the 6th month of the year. And if we add that to the 4, the 2020 year, 6 plus 4 equals 10. So this month, the energy really is about the number 1. 1 plus 0 equals 1. So in May, and the reason I'm pointing this out, because the numbers never lie. They're always really good indications, and they're simple.
Yeah.
May was the number 9. May was when all of this stuff happened. May was when the hit the fan and things bust open. The 9 is about completions. It's about integrity. It's about humanity. It's about lessons learned, surrendering, letting go of old, outdated ways of being in order to move forward. And we have the 4-year and the 9, and the 4 and the 9 are like, we're going to get down to business. And if you're not facing reality and you're not willing to do the work, the energies are going to make you do the work. I know that sounds in your face, but that's what happened in May. There was just this eruption. And so now we're in June, and it's a 1 universal month. And so we're starting a new cycle. There's a sense of independence. There's a sense of oneness, which we're seeing by people connecting and interconnecting, becoming one race, one people, all of the above. And that's the 10. 1, 0, 6 plus 4 equals 10. So you have the 0, which is the great equalizer and enhancer. And I always say it's like a piece of quartz crystal. It just enhances and clarifies whatever it touches. So when you have the 1 and the 0, it's all about the great oneness that we are all becoming. And that's really the energy that we're feeling in our dialogues with a lot of change. So
that's really important. But what you made me think of is that we have a few more eclipses coming. We have a few more things that are going to be affecting us as summer and the end of this year happens. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
So we've got the solstice coming up, and speaking of the 0, when the sun moves into Cancer and we have the solstice, and the solstice is, it's a changing of the guards. And this is the summer solstice. We enter into Cancer, the great divine mother, the healer, the nurturer, the wise woman. That, you could call it the divine feminine if you want. So we move into that energy in Cancer, but the moon basically joins the sun on the solstice. Right when the sun moves into Cancer, the moon is right there together, coupled for this new moon eclipse. And it happens at 0 degrees of Cancer. So it is almost like this cosmic reset that happens with the great divine feminine energy of the healer. So, and eclipses always trigger 6 months of energy. We have an eclipse after that. We've got a Capricorn eclipse in early July. That'll be a full moon eclipse. And I think that's the last of the Cancer Capricorn eclipse dialogue that we'll be having. And we move back into Sagittarius and Gemini eclipses. But that being said, we're entering eclipse season. We've already entered that gateway with the eclipse that happened earlier this month. But we're not out of the woods yet. We are still learning lessons, and it really is about healing and feeling and listening, going within. And Cancer is a very personal energy. It's about hearth and home. It's about the psychology of the soul and who you are internally and how you intimately connect. So it's about vulnerability every which way. And so feeling exposed may be part of this energy that we experience, in the handful of months to come. So exposing bad behaviors, old outdated belief systems, exposing maybe, areas in our political climate or wherever, maybe, basically pulling the curtain back is what it feels like is coming. And I really believe that there are going to be some shifts. You and I talked about this, that happen over the course of the next 6 months, where we may have a natural disaster, or we're not out of the clear yet as far as the fundamental waves of change. So grace for impact. Grace for impact.
Well, I think if you feel just in the energy, we're not done. There's more to come, and we just have to, but we can't walk in fear from that. We have to know that it's all going to be okay in the end. This is all for our growing and for our learning and for our expansion and understanding, clarity. All those things are important, and that's what it's about.
Yeah.
So we can't walk.
It's not a doom and gloom scenario. This is more about, and it's funny that I'm a 9 attitude and a 9 life path. So I know the energy of the 9, and believe me, I fall into the bad behaviors and the high vibes all the time. But the energy of the 9 is about, this new sense of humanity and seeing the bigger picture with integrity. And there's an excitement to that, because it feels like, okay, the struggle may be real, but there is something infinitely greater that is on the other side. And so I'm in it. I know that I came down in this lifetime. I know that we came down in this lifetime to create change that is going to change our hearts, our minds, our physiology, our consciousness, and create a new earth, a brave new world.
Right. And it's going to happen, and we all can do it together. For some reason, I'm feeling called to ask if you guys have any questions. I know you guys have been listening so intently. Hi, Cynthia. Thank you for being here. What more can you share with us about what to expect, or maybe, shifts that are going to be happening and that kind of thing?
Well, it really feels like, and this has come up a few times, and it feels like it'll come up more and more, because Cancer is a very psychic energy. If we move from Gemini right now, there's a lot going on communication-wise, mentally, intellectually being rewired, new perspectives, and looking at things with curiosity. That's what I love about Gemini. It's the curious energy, and being able to see new perspectives and have those aha moments and move to, squirrel. I love all of my Geminis. But what is your birthday? Remind me.
I'm a Sagittarius with Aries rising and Gemini, whatever. Moon.
Okay, so you're all the big energy all over the place. And if I remember, you either are a 5 attitude or a 5 life path. So so much sense. But you ground it in practically and with discipline, and that's what balances it out. But all that being said, when we move into Cancer, Cancer is like, ooh, let's go in, let's make this personal. Let's really step back and feel our way through this. So it's going to be going from the mind to the feelings, which is about that discernment. Moving forward with the interconnection of the head and the heart. And so I think energetic boundaries are really going to be imperative, because, we're good at taking action. We're good at being tangible and practical. A lot of us are hardwired that way, but we forget about energy, and that when we have conversations, there's an energetic connection. There's an energetic connection over the internet with the collective consciousness. And everybody has experienced this. I know that I certainly have. I'm pretty sensitive, but there have been days during this pandemic where I've gotten a good night's sleep and I wake up exhausted.
I hear you. Yes.
And I have to remember, oh gosh, it's because I'm feeling everything, and it's not all my stuff. It's, and it's not just the person in my house's stuff either. It's the collective. There's so much that it's heavy. And so, So really energetic boundaries, and that, that is grounding yourself, getting outside in nature. Also, I'm huge, on Epsom salt, taking showers and cleansing, clearing my energy, and saying that, cleansing energy. But for a long time, when I would do my Epsom salt and I'd cleanse and clear my energy, I would say, I am shifting this energy into higher vibrations. I am processing fear, and I would say that. And then I realized that was a lot of work for me physically to think that I could transmute all of the energies that I was taking on from the cosmos and the people that I work with, which is ego, by the way. And I didn't even realize it. And then I started saying, wait a minute, I'm going to ask if the earth will mulch this. I'm going to ask if the cosmos will turn this into intelligence. And I'm going to ask my guides and the people that love me on the other side, I'm going to ask them to take some of this, if they don't mind taking the energetic burden off and showing me how to clear my field so I can be valuable and productive and also feel enlivened and vital and fulfilled.
Right.
So,
that's one of the things we were talking about, having the influence, all of our friends, families that help us and support us. But we have so many beings and guides and spirits and souls on the other side, and they're always with us and they're always there to help us. All we have to do is ask. One of the other things that I use quite often is the rays of light. There's rays of light that come in and they transmute and release and relieve you from a lot of these things as well. So there's a lot of energies that you can use to help clear you, for sure.
So how do you do that? Share that with me. I'm like, give me a new tool for my toolkit, please.
Well, there's many different rays of light, but one of the ones that I really love using and use often is the violet transmuting flame. And that comes in and that transmutes anything that's attached to you and anything that's trying to connect with you that you want to just release. And it's got the wisdom to come through all your bodies and just clear all of your bodies out. You've got the ray, yellow ray from the angel Uriel that comes and gives you strength and power. And, there's books out there about these rays of light, and they come from the angels. They come from different beings, and they're all different. Whatever you need, you can call upon that ray of light or that flame to come and give you what you need to be able to continue on. And they're very, very helpful, very, very helpful and beautiful.
Just remembering to ask for guidance, and whether you've got an oracle deck, and you use oracle cards because you need something tangible to show you, or you're a meditator, and we meditate in the mornings, and we do sometimes guided meditations that'll be chakra clearing, and being able to just spend that quiet time asking for guidance, help, or clarity, just clearing out the gunk and the muck, 5 minutes of that is like a disco nap, and
yes. I mean, people, again, we're going to go back to that. People think you have to do it for hours, but even if you just take 5 minutes or 1 minute, when you're in a really stressful situation or you're feeling really overwhelmed, just to take that 1 minute to come back to self, to breathe and realize that you're connecting back to your soul, your heart space, your sacred soul, that's going to give you that energy and rejuvenation to move forward and to break through whatever is going on in your life. And we dismiss that more times than not. We think, like I was just talking today with somebody about how you can be in all of this energy and you don't know how to get out of it because life happens, right? We have days where it's like, I don't even know how to breathe because it's so busy. But it's those moments that you take in throughout that day that brings you back to the peace and that center to be able to get through that day and not lose your mind.
Yes. And then when you do have those times where you feel overwhelmed and scattered and disorganized, which, by the way, the energy of the 4 loves efficiency. It loves a process. It loves a checklist or a to-do list. But when it's in its low vibe, it's cluttered. It gets lost in the details. It cannot see the forest for the trees. It feels overwhelmed. It loses its power. So it's natural to experience that contrasting energy. And when that happens, remembering that you can reset, or you can say, oh, I'm sorry I behaved badly, or I snapped at you, or I was impatient. I'm impatient, by the way. I'm patient with my clients, but I'm not patient with people close to me. And I can be just snappy and a little demanding sometimes. And I know that about me. And so being able to recognize when that's coming on, because there's a feeling that precedes my whatever spews out of my mouth. And if I can catch myself in the feeling before it erupts, then I'm able to say, wait a minute, like this is coming from some other place because I'm feeling overwhelmed or cluttered or suffocating some way.
You know, that's really important to really think about, is that we have polarity in all things, right? The shadow side and the light side. And for all of you that, I'll get there, Denise. Denise wants to know how to get a hold of you. She wants an appointment with you. You have the polarity. And you also wrote a book, which I have. And I looked for it the other day feverishly and I couldn't find it. I put it somewhere. But anyway, do you have in that book the polarities of the shadow and the light in your book? I can't remember.
So you're talking about numerology for your home? Yes. In that book, it talks about the numbers and it gives the basic energy. So on the numbers 1 through 9, and it talks about the high vibes of the energy, what really the ultimate expression of each of the numbers is. And then it talks about the low vibes and the sneaky, snarky behaviors. Because just like the signs of the zodiac, each of us, and whatever our natal astrology and our code is, we fall into we sometimes get into the high vibes and expressions. And other times we slip into those behaviors that limit us. And so the numbers are the same way. So with the 4, the high vibes of the 4 is really about building a solid foundation that is sustainable and built to last. With the 22, it's about bringing dreams into reality, bridging the ego with consciousness, a higher level of consciousness into a practical, tangible human reality, interconnecting human and spirit. The low vibes, the 4 is a perfectionist. It is demanding. It loves working in restriction. It loves setting boundaries and a lot of pride, being hardcore, wanting what it wants, wanting it now, and wanting it its way. So it's just a lot of pushing masculine. I'm doing it this way. I'm getting it done. You're not stopping me. We're checking these boxes and we're not having any fun. The 4 is not creative. It likes to work. Like it achieves satisfaction from a job well done. So taking time to rest, to play, to organize yourself, but in a way that feels balanced or fluid or harmonious, bringing in those feminine energies, spiritual energies, all of that is important. And it feels like this Cancer eclipse is going to trigger some of that contrast, and it's going to feel wonky.
Oh, good.
Exposed and vulnerable. So just know that if you start feeling off and you feel triggered and your family triggers you or your close friends or your people trigger you and you get into fear, it's right where you're supposed to be. Feel it, get outside and take a walk. Create your practice that helps you reset.
In fact, I was just mentioning that to somebody else. We tend to, in the woo-woo world, feel like we can't really feel our feelings, because if we feel them, then we're giving them power, and the power is going to take over, and then we're creating that, and that's going to be in our life. I mean, I understand the principle of you think what you create, right? But that's not what we're talking about. When we have feelings, they're there for a reason. And I know one of the things with Adrienne Cobb, she's really taught me that when you bury them, when you try to, shove them down, then you're missing the nuggets that you really need. Because when you actually start feeling it and unfolding it and letting it all come to light, that's when you really get to the core of what it is that you're feeling or something that you need to really address. So you need to feel those feelings. Let them, doesn't mean that you dwell on it for 6 months, but you, at the moment, you let it percolate and keep breathing deeper and deeper into it. Ask for help to have clarity and understanding of why those feelings are coming up, because, whether it be with security or family or finances or any of these things, there's a core belief system there that you need to let go of.
Yes. And emotions are intelligent. Dr. Daniel Goleman years ago, he studied emotional intelligence and started looking at it and really recognizing that our emotions are superpowers, and they are really what harnesses our ability to manifest. If we can combine the emotion with the vibration, the emotional vibration and component of whatever it is, abundance, gratitude, joy, fulfillment, if we can feel that and envision it, boom, that's the power that comes with it. But in order to do that, you got to get familiar with all the icky stuff too, and I think, and I heard this a long time ago, and I say this a lot, but it takes about 12 seconds to fully process an emotion. It doesn't mean that you're going to be angry and be angry for 12 seconds and never be angry again, or even whatever is triggering your anger, 12 seconds is going to do it. But if you sit and acknowledge an emotion, you name it, and you breathe through it, and if you find it in your body, kudos to you, because you're interconnecting where it's manifesting in dense matter in the body. But if you breathe through it for 10, 20 seconds, you get tired of it. You're like, oh, that's anger, because it dissipates. We're a microwave culture. We are really rapid, but really it doesn't take long to actually process an emotion rather than distract. And like I said, I'm an emotional eater. So instead of feeling, sometimes I eat. That's what I do.
I learned that one very young as well. A lot of us learn that one, but yeah, but no, the interesting thing too, though, when you do that, when you don't just focus on, okay, I'm angry, but you're actually breathing into it and just letting it unfold the way that it's going to unfold, you'll find that you may have sorrow, or you may have disappointment, or, it's going to unpeel itself to what really is the right. And that's, so let it, don't, because if you bury it, it's just like you said, it's hiding in that emotional body somewhere, and then it's going to cause you problems later. Again, it would be like being in this year where we're going to have to uncover it and experience it and let it go. We might as well make it easier.
We're just in it. Life is happening. We're in a new decade. So, everything is different. And, it's like Einstein said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And the earth, Mother Earth, is shaking us and saying, hey, like, y'all have been insane a long time. Like, we're not going to do this anymore. We're going to change it up, because you all are slow learners. For as intelligent as you are, biologically, physiologically, everything, you guys are so slow. So we got to shake it up so you all create new patterns, new ways of being, new ways of responding.
And I do want to go back to, don't be afraid of it.
No.
We just have to go forward with it, because it's going to bring a newness and a clarity and a love for life again. So we just have to get through this. And really, it's about self-care and reaching out to the people who you really love and trust to be able to get through this time period. So just remember that. That's really
important. It's about connection, and it's also about enjoying the journey. There's some kind of renewed faith in life itself that I'm experiencing, but it feels much simpler than my complex mind wants to make it out to be. So by being able to sit back and enjoy sweet, intimate dialogue, or exercise, or do yoga, or journal, or work one-on-one with people, and to be able to sit back and go, wow, oh my gosh, that felt so good for me. I hope they felt half as good as I did. Those are the things, the simple things create just profound joy and fulfillment and meaning.
Right. Very true. Hi, Sharon Lee. Now we have two Sharons here. I don't know if the other Sharon's still here, but anyway, hi, you guys. Do you have any last words, takeaways, keys that you would like to share with everybody?
So hang in there, whatever you're experiencing, and everybody is experiencing different levels of fear and pain and doubt and anxiety, whatever it is, whether it's coming in the form of family stuff, physical health, finances and money and change. Hang in there, but also get really clear on what brings you joy, what brings you safety and security. That's been important for me, getting back to basics on what feels good to me today. And you said this earlier, Joanne, about if you don't love it, don't do it.
Yes.
That's so profound. And that's what it feels like is the takeaway, the know thyself piece.
Mm-hmm.
Is really clear on what do you love? Mm-hmm. Who do you love? Why do you love? What brings you peace? And I think I shared this with you the last time we talked. for a handful of years, one of my intentions was abundance. You know, abundance, you know, it is my intention that I experience abundance, you know, in my life and throughout my day, because so much of that had come from a lack consciousness. I'm not enough. I'm not doing enough, you know, financial insecurity, you know, all those old storylines. And then when we moved here and began to simplify and live in this beautiful village where, you know, Belize is a special country. We, multiple races connect and get along in very harmonious ways. And we have a precious village and precious connections here. But there's been this simplification and also and getting back to those basics of the way that I experience love and how I express that has been huge. So getting very clear on what safety, security, and love feels like is important. So know thyself is really, you know, important. And if you're not loving it or you're not liking it or it doesn't feel good, it doesn't feel healthy, aligned, then speak up, you know, and have your integrity so you can shine, because we need all the light we can get.
We really do. And I think that one of the other lessons that we're learning is to be able to speak up. No more of this, I have to just do it, because it's time to speak up and say, this isn't working for me anymore. I'm going to move on to something else. So what a lot of people would like to know is how they can get a hold of you.
So thank you. I'm so excited. Thanks for the, you know, being able to connect today. My website is soulpathology.com. www.soulpathology.com. So you can find me there, and there's a way to connect. There's a way to book a session. It's a soul pathology session. Unfortunately, I stay pretty busy, so there's a little bit of a wait, but jump in there, and I have a wait list, and you know, it's always divinely timed. So,
it always is.
Always.
And thank you, Denise, for that prod. And also for myself, you can reach me at reachtheunlimited.com. Really hard to remember since you're on my channel, but you can connect with me as well through reachtheunlimited.com or email me at joanne@reachtheunlimited.com. And I just so enjoyed this conversation. I always enjoy having these conversations with you. Thank you for your time and for all of your wisdom and balance that you gave all of us. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. You're so easy to talk to, and we could talk on the camera and off the camera for a long time. You know, but I do want to say this. I've been in this whole period, I've really stepped back, and I haven't been putting a lot of content out there because just the individual work has been a lot, and it's been enough, you know, and being able to say that and recognize that. And so you're the first person that I've said yes to have a dialogue.
Ooh.
This hasn't felt right. And I knew that like this space was authentic and your energy is authentic. And I've really, it felt good to have this discussion and to feel safe and secure and seen. So you create that energy. So thank you.
Thank you. And that what you said is really important. I love that as an ending, to remember that just because people are putting all this stuff out doesn't mean that you have to partake in it. And you need to really just be monitoring your own level of energy and what will work for you and not. And it's okay to say no.
Yeah,
it is.
It is. Hey, look, this Libra, this people-pleasing, recovering people-pleasing Libra, you know, this yes gal has become like, thank you so much, but no. And I tell that to clients all the time, but it's taken me a long time to take my own medicine, you know?
I hear you. Yeah. All right, you guys, you all be well and take care of yourself, and we'll all get through this. And thank you for sharing this time with us. Bye.
Brian.